India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. We are building highways, airports, industries. Millions of people are moving into the middle class. But behind all this growth, there is one hidden weakness. India depends on other countries for most of its oil. And if that supply is disturbed even for a few days, it can shake the entire economy. Let's understand how serious this is. Today, India imports around 85% of its crude oil from other countries. That means every time you fill petrol in your bike or car, a large part of that money is actually going outside India. And more importantly, the price you pay is not decided only by India. It depends on global events like wars, tensions, supply disruptions. So the real question is, why can't India produce enough oil for itself? And what risk does this dependence create for our future? To understand this problem properly, we need to go back in time. India's oil journey actually began during the British era. In the late 1800s, oil was first discovered in Digboi, Assam. In fact, Digboi is home to one of the oldest oil refineries in the world. At that time, this discovery created a lot of excitement. People believed India might become self-sufficient in oil, but that did not happen. After independence, the Indian government made serious efforts. Major companies like ONGC were created to explore oil across the country. And yes, some important discoveries were made, like Mumbai High in the 1970s and oil fields in Assam and Gujarat. This boosted India's production significantly. But even at its peak, India's oil production was never enough to meet its needs. And at the same time, India's economy was growing, population was increasing, which meant demand kept rising continuously. Now let's understand the core reasons behind this problem. Why exactly does India not have enough oil? Geological reality. First and most important is geology. Oil is not evenly distributed across the world. It is formed under very specific conditions over millions of years. Countries in the Middle East like Saudi Arabia and Iraq have huge oil reserves because their land and seabed were ideal for oil formation. But India's geological structure is very different. We simply do not have that scale of oil deposits underground. So no matter how much we try, we cannot match those countries in production. Exploration challenges. Second reason is the difficulty of finding and extracting oil. Oil exploration is extremely expensive. Companies have to invest billions of dollars, drill deep into the earth, sometimes under the ocean also. And even after all that, there is no guarantee of success. In India, many potential areas are deep offshore regions, remote and difficult terrains, which makes exploration even more costly and risky. Third is declining old fields. Many of India's existing oil fields are getting old. Take Mumbai High for example. It was once the backbone of India's oil production, but over time its output has started declining. This is natural because oil fields do not last forever. So while demand is rising, production from old fields is actually going down. Now here comes the biggest challenge. India's oil demand is growing very fast. Let's break this down. India is developing rapidly. More people are earning more money, which means more people are buying cars and bikes. Cities are expanding. Industries are growing. Air travel is increasing. Logistics and transport networks are expanding. And all of this runs heavily on oil. That's why today India has become the third largest oil consumer in the world. And here is the most important point. Even if India increases its oil production, demand is growing much faster than supply. So the gap between what we need and what we produce keeps getting bigger every year. Now here is something interesting. Importing oil is not always a weakness. Sometimes it actually makes economic sense. First is the cost advantage. In many cases, extracting oil in India is expensive because of difficult terrain, deep drilling, and high costs involved. But countries in the Middle East can produce oil at a much lower cost, so importing becomes a cheaper option. Global oil market. Oil is a globally traded commodity. India is not dependent on just one country. We import oil from multiple sources like Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Russia. This diversification gives India flexibility. And here is a big advantage India has. India is one of the largest oil refining hubs in the world. We import crude oil, refine it into petrol, diesel, and other products, and even export these products to other countries. So, in a way, India adds value to imported oil. But this dependence also creates serious risk. Geopolitical risk. If there is a conflict in the Middle East, oil supply routes can be disrupted. Even tensions in regions like the Strait of Hormuz can affect global supply that we are facing right now. Price volatility. Oil prices are highly unpredictable. Even small global events can cause sudden price spikes. Currency impact. If the Indian rupees weakens against the dollar, importing oil becomes more expensive, which increases cost across the economy. Economic pressure, and all this directly impacts you. Higher oil prices lead to higher petrol and diesel prices, increased transport costs, rise in prices of goods, which ultimately causes inflation. So, what India is actually doing? To reduce this dependence, India is taking several important steps. Renewable energy. India is investing heavily in solar energy, wind power to reduce reliance on fossil fuels. Electric vehicles. The government is promoting EVs to reduce petrol and diesel consumption. Diversifying imports. India is buying oil from multiple countries to reduce risk and get better prices. Also, strategic reserves. India has created strategic oil reserves to store oil for emergencies in case of some global disruptions. So the reality is clear. India does not have enough oil reserves. Demand is rising rapidly and imports are necessary for now. But the future depends on one thing: how fast India can reduce this dependence. Because oil is not just fuel, it is power, economy, and global influence. And the countries that control energy control the future. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe and comment. Thank you.